And you really should, sir.
Yo, 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 what's up, y'all? Thank you for sliding. I'm
What's
Nirvana,
happening? And I am the dynamicist.
and we're unlatched, y'all.
Right.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate y'all. We appreciate the people who come for the replay. We're not here for a long time, but we are going to approach a topic of Assata Shakur, who I did not know who she was. Unfortunately, it's kind of sad actually. Uh, Dynamicist brought it up to me last week when she passed away. I believe she passed away on September 25th, right? I
Yeah.
believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being said, rest in peace to Asada Shakur. And now that I've hi Tia, and now that I've done
What's
some
good to you?
research, thanks to Dynamicist, I mean the respect is really what it is. So I won't do too much talking. This video here is exactly what it says. Who is she? Um, I Dynamicist might have some video. I don't know, but I picked out four of them as I was looking through some things today, and they're pretty short. But just to give a synopsis of who she is, some of it is in her own words, and then others are, other pieces of her. But um, Jason Dynamics, what did you want to say before we play the first video? And then tell me, of course, if you had some videos you want to share too.
Well, yeah, there's plenty of things to talk about as it relates to someone of the magnitude of her, especially when you consider where we're at in 2025. Um, there's a lot of parallels that I'm seeing that's taking place. It's really interesting. There's a concept I want to actually talk about, but we'll do this in the latter half of the show. Um, but it's really making me wonder. When you hear more about her story, you're familiar with what was taking place during the time period where she was an activist, if you will, and actually take that back. Her entire life, she still was a part of activism, but you didn't hear her voice as much. That wasn't accidental. And that also brings me to that piece that I'm really curious about, but we'll talk about that later. But listen, put your listening ears on. We this is about the time for the people. So let's get to work.
Okie doke.
Thompson. We know the names and faces of many Black revolutionaries like Fred Hampton and Malcolm X, but how much of their stories do we really know? We learn about the nation's most notable Black leaders in school and in the media, but even the things you can learn can be misconstrued depending on the source. A perfect example of this is many false details about Martin Luther King Jr. portrayed in the media by way of the FBI. Another radical leader who shares the experience of having their narrative be told by the government is activist and author Assata Shakur. Some may know her as a member of the Black Liberation Army. Some may recognize the name as the late rapper Tupac Shakur's godmother. But if you were to look up Assata Shakur on the internet, you might find that she's a bank robber, a kidnapper, and a murderer. According to Shakur through interviews in her autobiography Assata, that is not at all her story. It is true that she has been a political activist since the 1960s, has worked alongside many famous revolutionaries like Huey P. Newton and Angela Davis. The meaning of her chosen name, Assata Alukbala, reflects her life and legacy. She who struggles for the people. Her life has been dedicated to the collective struggle for Black liberation. So how did Assata go from activist to FBI's most wanted? This is what you didn't know about Assata Shakur. There is no evidence.
Okay, I want to, Jason. If there's Dynamicist, if there's anywhere you want me to stop, like I said, it's not long, but if there's just you gotta tell me. I can't see you, so
Hmm.
just say something, and I'll stop it. And there, one thing I'll say right here is when I did my initial Google of her name after Jason told me about her, it came to the Wikipedia page, and to the point of the person who was dictating just now in the video. That is what I found about her. All those things that they just named.
You talking
Uh,
about the bank robber
terror,
movies?
bank robber,
Yeah,
murderer, All
Yeah.
that came up on Wikipedia, and that's my go-to when I'm looking up people. And that is indeed what my first when I Googled her name. Okay, so that very very much true.
Evidence of the birth of Assata Shakur, at least none that can be confirmed by the FBI. The wanted poster released by the Federal Bureau of Investigation lists Shakur's birthday as July 16th, 1947, but in parentheses it states, not substantiated by birth records. The FBI also notes that Shakur used August 19th, 1952 as her birthday. However, she was born as Joanne Deborah Bryan, what she calls her slave name, in Jamaica, Queens, New York, where she grew up moving back and forth between her mom, aunt, and grandparents in Wilmington, North Carolina. Growing up in the Jim Crow era, Shakur's grandparents, Lola and Frank Hill, who owned a local dance hall, instilled in her a sense of dignity, especially regards to white people. They would tell her things like, "You're as good as anyone else. Don't let anyone tell you that they're better than you." And when it came to white people, she was forbidden from calling them ma'am or sir, looking down while speaking to them, or any other subservient gestures. In her autobiography, she writes, "I was told to hold my head up high or risk having my grandparents knock it off my shoulders." Although Shakur experienced racism earlier in life, she wouldn't begin to radicalize into her late teen years. At 17 years old, Shakur dropped out of school and moved out on her own. She lived with strangers for a while until her aunt Evelyn, who later became her lawyer, took her in and helped her get her GED. She would go on to attend Bureau of Manhattan Community College and later City College of New York.
With less burning, itching, and pain from moderate to severe.
She made friends with many of the African students on
Did you say something?
Yeah, I was trying to say, what the fuck was that?
Oh, because I have ads.
Oh.
campus. Then one day in 1964, a discussion on the roots of the Vietnam War changed her life. I never forgot that day. We're taught at such an early age to be against communists, yet most of us don't have the faintest idea what communism is. Only a fool lets somebody else tell him who his enemy is. She became active in different organizations like the Garveyites in the Republic of New Africa. And in the late 1960s, Assata would join one of the most prominent political organizations, the Black Panther Party. Though brief, her time with the Black Panthers would mark a life-changing turn of events in her political career. She had always revered the message of the Black Panther Party, especially because they made it really clear who the enemy was. Not the white people, but the capitalistic, imperialistic oppressors.
Mm-hmm.
Shakur has said that the party not being open to criticism led to her exit from the organization. In her autobiography, she writes, "Constructive criticism and self-criticism are extremely important for any revolutionary organization. Without them, people tend to drown in their own mistakes, not learning from them." Government infiltration, namely COINTELPRO, among other factors, led to the demise of the Black Panther Party, but not before its most prominent members had turned against each other, been killed, falsely imprisoned, or demonetized in the media. These events gave way to the Black Liberation Army, a group that the FBI named Shakur the heart of. BLA members operated under the belief that only through covert means, including but not limited to violent acts, could the movement be continued. This underground Black Party spinoff built its tactics around revolutionary violence with the goal to take up arms for the liberation of Black people in the United States. Acting as her own co-counsel in a 1976 trial for murder, Assata claimed in her opening statement, "The Black Liberation Army is not an organization. It goes beyond that. It is a concept, a people's movement, an idea. The idea of a Black Liberation Army emerged from conditions in Black communities, conditions of poverty, indecent housing, massive unemployment, poor medical care, and inferior education," she continued. "The concept of the BLA arose because of its political, social, and economic oppression of Black people in this country. And where there is oppression, there will be resistance." From 1971 to 1973, Shakur was alleged to have committed a series of heinous crimes: 2 bank robberies in New York, the kidnap of a drug dealer, armed robbery, and the attempted murder of a policeman in an ambush. In 1972, the FBI issued a warrant for her arrest in connection with these crimes allegedly committed by the BLA. It was clear that the Black Liberation Army was a target for the FBI, local police agencies, and they were being pinned with every violent crime in the area.
She talked about that, Jason, in her. Remember, I told you a little while ago I was watching a documentary.
Yeah.
And she mentioned that in the documentary, and she was saying how, they had started. First of all, I want to say go back to the part where they were talking about the black, when she left the Black Panthers, and she was only there a short period of time. But what she said in the documentary is that they were basically rough around the edges, and it was very masculine in the sense that they had this hard shell, and the way they did things was just, and that's where it comes to. But she said they weren't that open to criticism because her approach, and she felt like it should be a much softer approach, not maybe not much, but a softer approach, because their approach was so harsh, right? And not everybody couldn't receive the message in that way, and they weren't open to it. And so I'm bringing that up because she moved over, right? And there we go, talk with the whole feminine touch, and a woman's leadership, right? So
Hmm.
I know we might have time to talk about that later, hopefully. But I me all this is playing in my mind as I'm watching the documentary because I've read some things. You know what I mean? So it's like it starts putting the picture together of what
Hmm.
type of woman she was, and the fact that up until high school, she went to Catholic school. She did everything the right way, quote unquote. She
Hmm.
was raised
Went
in a
to college.
yeah, I mean, she wasn't no out there acting up type shit. She just basically was learning on her own and got hip to the shit. And she mentioned in the documentary, and then I'm gonna keep going. She mentioned in the documentary that during her time and during that time, it was all over the place. It being the revolution and the uprising. She was living in the time when that's what was going on.
Hmm.
Versus today, like my son, for instance, at 27, he's not living. We're not out on the streets fighting, right? And she talked about how that it just looks different today. You see what I'm saying? So nothing's changed. It just looks different. So anyway, it's
Mm.
boggling. It's
No,
all
yeah, you and actually that's going to come back up because that's actually a part of the piece I wanted to talk about towards the latter half anyway. And
mhm.
the concept and is there's a curiosity as to how do we get here. Um but yeah, we'll get to, but that's going to come right back up because that's actually a part of what my thoughts are.
Okay.
Assata would later either be acquitted for every charge or the case was dismissed. Then came the events of May 2nd, 1973, the fatal Jersey Turnpike shootout. There are different accounts of what happened that night, but what we do know is that Assata and her political associates, Zaid Malik Shakur and Sindada Akoli, were stopped by State Trooper James Harper, backed up by Trooper Wiener Forster for driving with a broken tail light.
Here we
Shots
go.
were fired and Zaid Shakur and Wiener Forster were killed. After fleeing the scene, Assata, wounded with 2 gunshots to the arm and the back, surrendered to the police, and Akoli was captured after a 36-hour manhunt. Only the survivors know what really happened that night, and Assata refuses to share details even to this day. But in 1977, upon being found guilty, Assata maintains that the jury convicted a woman with her hands up. The trial was considered by many to be a miscarriage of justice, beginning with the jury selection. Transcripts show that at least 2 of the juries expressed prejudice before the start of the trial. 5 out of the 15 jurors selected, all white, were close friends or relatives to New Jersey state troopers. A major key in Assata's defense was medical testimony proving that during the confrontation, she was shot with her hands up, sustaining paralyzing wounds that would make her unable to fire a weapon in the manner that Trooper Harper had testified. Harper's testimony conflicted throughout the trial, and he testified to lying in his official report on the incident as well as in his grand.
No, no, no. This is the shit I'm talking about, and I hope you
Mhm.
guys are hearing this. And this was big for me because this is in the 70s, right? And it's the same shit they do today.
Same
I
shit.
mean, the fucking jury was handpicked. The fucking people on the jury were fucking relatives of the cop and shit. I mean, like way out
Mhm.
blatant bullshit like that. That shit is crazy to me. And then she's found, because initially I started with the thoughts that, I mean, well, what's the whole story and all that, right? Okay, fine. But How can someone get a fair trial with all that shit going on? And then
Not
she
possible.
escapes jail after a couple of years. Her people, her revolutionary people, brothers, get her the fuck out of there. They fucking take over a police van, hold hostages, and get her the fuck out of there. Right? And it's like she talks in the documentary about how she felt like she didn't have a choice, and the way they treated her in there. I mean, it's so disturbing. And it just, as a woman and for a woman, it just makes me have so much respect, and it just reminds me that as a woman, that you have a lot of power and resilience, right? And we don't tap into it because we don't really know how. And that's all by design, right? And it's like
Mhm.
it's sickening. But anyway, I wanted to say about this whole trial thing. I was like, oh God, when I was listening to it, I was like, oh my God, this is blatant, just bullshit, bro.
Uh, and you know the sad part about it is even going back to how he was pulled over, and the whole notion of the broken tail light. And if you just go back through Black history and different other events, that's always a convenient excuse. Um, Jack Johnson, you can go back to Hurricane. What was it, Hurricane Carter? I can't think of the guy's name. He was a boxer, another boxer back in the day. Where they broke his tail light on the way up to his car, right? Pulled him over, broke his tail light, and said, "You got a broken tail light." And then it's mayhem ensues.
Right.
And we see this consistently. As a matter of fact, what's interesting about that though is 2021, Malcolm Williams, 27-year-old Black man was shot and killed by police during a traffic stop for a broken fucking tail light. 2016, another scenario, broken tail light. And we have the Black liberation piece that happened in the 70s. But you can go back through history, and that's just a few of them, right? Where there were these convenient excuses as to why these people were stopped and then harassed from that point. So, you know, from the onset of all of this, it was absolutely bogus. But I digress.
Mm-hmm.
And jury testimony. And though there were no forensic evidence proving that Assata ever touched a gun that night, the jury found her guilty on all 8 counts.
no
She was sentenced to life plus 30 years. Shakur spent years in jail before her conviction under conditions that most would consider to be deplorable. In her autobiography, she tells of being embarrassed and even tortured by police in the hospital after the incident. She was chained to her hospital bed and interrogated while gravely injured. She was even held in an all-male prison in solitary confinement for over 20 months and under 24-hour surveillance. She was beaten and given less than adequate medical care, even when she became pregnant with her only daughter, Kakuya. When the prison first found out she was pregnant, a doctor not only lied about her diagnosis multiple times, but he also refused to provide Shakur with any support besides an abortion. So in 1979, Assata Shakur had decided that it was time to go.
Okay, pin that. When I did some research on her daughter, and I looked up her daughter, because her daughter, it put the post up of her mom's death on Facebook when she passed away. Okay, what's crazy is when I was trying to see who her father was, it doesn't mention the father at all, no, anywhere. Okay, but in this here what we're listening to, if she was locked up
Exactly.
when she got pregnant, that means she was raped.
Right.
And she got pregnant in jail because she was in there for 20 months in solitary confinement. How the fuck do you get pregnant in solitary confinement?
Not possible.
Under
Again.
24-hour surveillance.
Right.
And she did not give her any medical care. But anyway, so I mean, this is so obviously what she's saying is true, and they keep trying to say it's not true. But I got a little video of the cops, the actual cops, niggas talking about it. It's crazy. Okay, but anyway, it's almost done.
November 2nd, she escaped from the Clinton Correctional Facility for Women. It is said that a group of members of the Black Liberation Army helped Shakur escape by posing as visitors to the prison. Holding 2 correctional officers hostage at gunpoint, they stole a prison van to get off the facility grounds, leaving the hostages in the parking lot before switching cars and fleeing the scene. Shakur refuses to go into detail about her escape in solitary with those incarcerated due to their involvement. After breaking out of prison, Assata went on the run and remained underground for 5 years until fleeing to Cuba and receiving political asylum in 1984. To this day, Shakur remains in Cuba with the FBI classifying her as a domestic terrorist since May 2nd, 2005. In 2013, on the 40th anniversary of Trooper Forster's death, Shakur became the first woman added to the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. They placed a $2 million bounty on the activist. In 1998, Shakur told Source magazine, "The US government tried to eliminate me, but I'm not a criminal like they want you to believe, or a gangster. The FBI has a way of leaking all kinds of stories about me to the press, the same way they've always tried to criminalize the Black liberation movement. Because of this, we as a people have to be really clear about who we are and what we stand for. Even today, we see the media misconstrue the facts in many cases of social injustice, but with the emergence of social media, we're able to see the truth play out in real time. Robert Doyle, a lawyer connected to the BLA, is quoted in the book Days of Rage as saying, "Assata was never this massively important figure the police portrayed her as. She was important, but the police made up this mythic image of a super Black woman with an afro and a machine gun. She was never that." When asked if she would ever return to the United States, Assata told Essence magazine in 1997, "I don't know. I think it will be hard. It's funny. People ask me if I miss the States. I miss African Americans. I miss our culture, our speech, dance, and cooking, but not the US government and all the things that they put me through. I miss my friends and family. When I ask how things are in the States, they don't give me the okie dokie. They say, honey, things are hard. It reminds me I have to keep struggling." And at the age of 75 years old, Assata Shakur remains in Cuba. Stay up to date with the latest news by
Okay, that was it for that one. But yeah. If you want to add something to that, I mean, I thought that was a good intro video because it kind of gives you guys an idea. It is deep and it is crazy for real. Yeah. So anyway, I found a clip too. I think I sent it to you, Jason, of the cops actually making their statement on the interview back then. And admitting to setting her, to trying to get it, that they would kidnap her. But then he retracted his statement. But you hear him on the interview saying, "We would kidnap her if we have to." It's like, you motherfuckers. Okay, but anyway.
Well, I mean, 2025 or 4, Kyron Lacey. Same exact. I mean, when you consider that people, it's baffling to think that people who are given the responsibility and are supposed to be advocates for truth often fall short of that. And what I'm referring to is the officers that are often involved in a lot of these type of scenarios, which I would consider them the low men on the totem pole to a degree, right? But at the same time, and I will say this too, it doesn't take a lot to be an officer of any law enforcement agency. It doesn't take a lot. The truth of the matter is people who are exceptionally brilliant are often pushed aside because they become threats. So they won't hire them if you score too high on some of those tests because you undermine authority. And that's actually came from several credible sources that have been or were not allowed to, and it was acknowledged that no, they won't hire those people. And so if you think about it, the people who are often involved are just regular everyday people, right? They have their bias, have a little bit of power, so they lose their shit in the process. The unfortunate part about it is that when you have a climate that people of color have lived in this country, you're not given the benefit of the doubt, right? It's not guilty until proven innocent, or not innocent until proven guilty. It's really guilty, just based on who you are. And we've seen this play itself out, but just like the Kyron Lacey video that came out where the officer was heard, and Kyron Lacey is an LSU athlete who killed himself because he was coming up on these charges that he knew he didn't cause the accident, but at the same time, the officers on camera saying, coercing the people around to say, hey, I need you to say it like this though. And that those body footage cameras just got released. Again, and it's believed that this wouldn't have came out if he hadn't have killed himself. All right. It would have been silenced even throughout the trial. But we see her story. And this brings up a good point. And I know you're going to bring some more details up, but it brings up a good point. And I like what she said is about we have to know who we are, right? And you got to know, you have to be very clear about the image of who you are. And not the image that's being painted, and nor the image that culture has told you that who you are. I'm a firm believer in this is the greatest opportunity that we have presented in our lifetime to really carve out your own pathway, to understand, to identify who exactly am I and what really makes sense for me. I know what I was told. I know what they said I should do. I understand how this might look because this goes directly against, the tapestry of my experience. But this shit just doesn't make sense to me. And so until I'm willing to actually pivot and investigate, right? A guy, his name is Jason. I met this guy one time and we tripped out because we have names spelled different, but it's pronounced the same. But I met him and he told me one day, he said, never park your intelligence. Keep your intelligence in drive all the time. He said, because the moment you put your intelligence in park, then you're allowing someone else to define life for you. And whatever their bias is, whatever their agenda is, well, then you become party to that agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, as people in this country, as Black Americans, as the lower class, because that's really what it boils down to, is that we're fed lies consistently. And the assassination of the individual's character is always the first move. I want to sway public opinion. I want to move them away from accepting anything that this individual says. And if you start looking throughout history, you look at a lot of the people that were high figures in the African American community or the Black community in this country, there are very few that are beyond reproach, right? Based on the narratives. Even Assata Shakur, who wasn't guilty of doing the shit that they said she did, wasn't even possible for her to do that. But yet still, like Cuzzo said, she gets online. The first thing she reads is, well, she robbed the bank. She did this. She did that. She's a deplorable individual. It's not until you get further than that and you really start to dig and say, oh, wait a minute. That's not even close to what happens, right? Or what happened or the truth about who she is. And I see that happening with us as people.
Because see, this is the thing. She was a revolutionary. And she said herself, that, basically there could be violence and you have to defend yourself. She wasn't against violence, right? But it was when necessary, if necessary. But the thing about it is we know.
But is that violence or is that resistance?
Well,
Like if
resistance.
you're abusing me,
A resistance.
Is it violence when I respond back and I give you the same energy? Is it violence then?
Right.
And I don't think that's fair, right? And I'm not saying what you said was incorrect. That's not what I'm saying. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But I'm saying these are the narratives, right?
Yeah.
I got a call about my son in school talking a lot, which I know he does. I'm his daddy. It is what it is. But they also said something that kind of piqued my interest, and they said, well, and he put his hands on some kids, right? Well, I know him fairly well. And what I do know about him is he's not the shit starter type. He will respond, but he doesn't usually just start shit, right? He doesn't do it at home. He was constantly at school. We used to talk to him about, you got to defend yourself. This is last year. Um, and, he just wants to be cool. So when she said that, it was interesting. And I told him, I said, listen, I will never be upset with you for defending yourself, period. But see, that's the narrative that they led with. Well, he did this. Well, who the fuck started the shit?
Mm-hmm.
Did
Right.
did he instigate it? Did he start the shit, or was he actually responding? No. You're telling me because that you only saw him, or that kid came and told you
Right.
that he hit him, but not the fact of what actually took place. And I say all that to say, I think a lot of these scenarios play itself out consistently in media. And Danielle made a dope point when she mentions even about TikTok and them taking over TikTok and buying it so that they can control the narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a president that has spoken blatantly and professed lies and things of that nature on a consistent basis. We'll just make some shit up.
Right.
And people seem to go for it, right? His base goes for it, and they eat it up lock, stock, and barrel, irrespective if it's a blatant lie. And if you don't know any better, then you would think that Charlie Kirk was a peaceful man.
And this is the thing. And when we say, and then I'm gonna go to the next video. We're at 30 minutes, but when we talk about not going any further, I think for me, there was and everybody's in a different space, right? But there was a time when I wouldn't have gone any further, right? But I can see the value in, and this is for anything, like even when Dynamics was telling me about the LSU student, okay? And I was telling Dynamics, I'm playing devil's advocate. I want the whole story, not what we believe to be true, right? But it's always the problem. The problem is that as diplomatic as I want to be, it's almost impossible to be because the way this system is set up, it's like as diplomatic and quote unquote fair that I want to be to everybody when I hear a story, it's like, but every time I do that and I start to dig, we're always on the short end of the stick. So I'm always feel like now it's like I'm wasting my time trying to be fair, and it's never fair. It's not gonna be fair. So does that mean that we can't do any wrong? No. But my point is we don't get a fair shake. So whatever it is, just know at the end of whatever research you're gonna do, I guarantee you, we ain't gonna come out fair. It's not coming out fair. No matter how you shake it.
You bring a good point. That's a solid ass point, and especially when you consider we were taught to be fair, right? That was emphasized in our culture. That was emphasized especially in our households, right? There was never this whole notion. I remember this one time. I remember this time I got in trouble for starting a fire at school. You remember that shit?
Vaguely, yes. And that was a big deal. You got
huge,
mom was wasn't it my mom? You got in trouble by everybody.
Yeah, she fucked me up on that one. But look, but here's what she did. She said something to me that made so much sense. And it kind of it shaped who I am today. There was never a such thing for her as blind allegiance. And blind allegiance is, oh, because you my baby, you can't do no wrong. It was never that. It was not with me, at least. It was never that. It was always tell me the whole story.
She was big on
right.
That.
Tell me the whole story. Don't leave none of that shit out.
Let me find out. You better tell me everything about
that was right.
That's your ass.
Because if I find out it was some other shit and you omitted it, pause.
Right.
I told Zion that, and this little nigga 6. I
Right.
just had that conversation with him, and I said, I'm going to support you, but I need to know all the details.
Mhm.
Don't leave out details for me, right?
Right.
But that comes from her. So
Yeah.
what she said was, and I was playing with matches in the bathroom, playing with matches, found them
Well, I still
in
live in that bathroom. God damn. Go ahead.
Miss Williams' class. I was in Miss Williams' class, and she smoked apparently, but her matches fell out on the floor, and I seen them say, "Oh shit!" When the bathroom started playing with the matches, and somebody came in and saw shit, whatever. So I got in trouble for it.
Right.
So anyway, but when she asked me about the situation, that was her point, right? She was always like, "I need you to give me the whole story. I'm going to make sense out of it from there." When it all was said and done, she still went to bat for me as it relates to me being in that school, not getting expelled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's without question. She also fucked me up in the process because of my behavior, right? But that's the thing I was saying. And that's why I said you made a very solid point because our culture, we do emphasize that because it's a safety mechanism. I honestly think that's what it boils down to because we live in a place in which you have to be above and beyond reproach,
Mhm.
right? To even have a chance at making it out or making it through this gauntlet, right? This it's not a situation to where you can do whatever. I have white friends and I would hear their parents or hear things that they talk about. And even when these niggas was blatantly wrong, and again, this is not all the cases, but I will say this 98% of my black friends or Hispanic friends, their parents had a very similar way of approach. Maybe one or two out of the rest of my white friends, their parents had a similar to our type of approach. It was always just it was like I'm going to protect you. It doesn't matter what it was, or I'm gonna go to bat for you, if you will. Good, bad, or indifferent. So I wonder if that brings up a larger question for us as a culture group is does that mean that we are teaching our kids wrong? Does it also mean that we're on the wrong side by approaching things from a fair mindset? Does it mean that we ultimately are setting ourselves up to be behind the eight ball?
No, I think that again, like you said, it's a safety mechanism. I feel like you move one way in public, and behind closed doors, you move a different way to stay safe. And I still feel like uh that's how it should be. I mean, that's how I always because even with my son, I'm always like, do what the police say. If you get pulled over, I'm my thing is don't give them a reason, although they may not need one, but don't add fuel to the fire. If you are by yourself, and my mom would say the same thing when it came to family, or if somebody was watching me or something like that, it was always do what they say if I'm not there. And if some shit goes haywire, you tell me when you see me, and I'll take it from there. But you're
Mhm.
not in a position. But part of that is I'm a child and that's an adult, and that's a respect factor. Because if I trusted them to watch you, that means I trust them to watch you, right? So you got to listen. But like my son being a black man now, right, in the world, in this fucked up world, I don't, I don't want and as far as I know, he's never had, thank God, a negative experience that he's told me about with police. The nigga speeds all the time. He has a sports car. He's always doing the shit he shouldn't be doing. And he's gotten pulled over before, and they either let him go or what, because he's just a nice guy. And so was my dad. Very like pleasant, and what do you call it when you're not appeasing, but just not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
See, so
Yeah.
Whitey likes that. You're a good little nigger.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good
Type shit.
God, good boy.
Type shit.
Yeah, you go. Oh, you wear your seatbelt. Oh, instead of a motherfucker with an attitude like, nigga, damn, again? What the fuck I do now? My shit is registered. God
So,
damn.
but could it be because he code switches?
Yeah, and that's the mechanism, right? That's the mechanism.
So the
But
fact that some of us have that ability or hone that ability, right?
mhm,
But some of us don't. And it's terribly unfair
yeah.
to consider that just because this person can code switch to disarm someone's bias and someone's prejudice,
I know. It's fucked up.
right? And when you were talking about that, I'm just thinking like, man, it's crazy because as people, we live in a space that where these are the type of conversations that we have to have.
Mhm.
And we have to have those with our kids. My son, who's 16, he's like 6'4" now. 6'4", 210, 215. Even when he was younger, he was always a bigger kid, tall, right? And I remember he might have been 8 and he was playing baseball. And someone got upset. Some parent in the stands got upset. So I went and defended him because he's playing the game. But the thing is, it's like it seems like it happens more often than not that our children are always find themselves in these type of positions, right? Where they have to play down in order to make other people feel comfortable.
Mhm.
And I remember telling him like, you got to carry yourself a certain kind of way. And because you don't want to attract the negative type of attention from the establishment. And it's really unfortunate that we have to give our kids all these different types of tools and whatnot, just survival tools, just for them to have everyday existence. And it's not necessarily character building. It's not really about character. It's just safety. It's
Mhm.
just it's no different than if we lived in the fucking jungle and there were lions and tigers and bears that are
Right.
all outside. Don't feed them motherfuckers. Don't give the bear food. You give the
Well,
bear food.
okay,
Or
so my thing is, okay, so if it's okay, so life isn't fair, right? I get it. It's not fair, but this is the environment we live in. How do you change it? We're talking about Assata Shakur uh in the
Assata.
60s.
Yep.
Assata, sorry about that. Assata Shakur in the 60s. This is now 25, and it's the same narrative.
Come
It
on.
looks different, but it's the same narrative. So, I mean, I don't know. At the end, I guess we'll talk about like maybe what that could look like. Now I want to show these two videos here. We got 20 minutes. They're not long. One is 4 minutes and one is they're both 4 minutes. Part 1 and 2. Check this out. Part 1 and 2. Hold on. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the conversation. Part 1. Let's see. Part 1's right here. Here we go.
A heroine to some. As a fighter for black rights, she is a villain to others who believe she hides her crimes behind revolutionary rhetoric. Back in the 1970s, Assata Shakur was known as the soul of the self-styled Black Liberation Army, an armed group implicated in the killings of several police officers. In New Jersey,
Several.
Governor
It was
Whitman
only
has
one.
posted a $50,000 reward for her capture. Meet her now in Cuba. As she walks through Havana streets, she is just another shopper. She passes almost unnoticed by Cubans. Her name is Assata Shakur. In the United States, she is known by the police and FBI as Joanne Chesimard, one of the nation's most wanted fugitives. Wanted for what police describe as the cold-blooded execution of a New Jersey state trooper back in the 70s. She denies it and says of the state cops,
they want to just kill me. They want to see me dead.
Chesimard was convicted in the killing of Trooper Werner Foster and the wounding of another trooper in a furious shootout on the New Jersey Turnpike in East Brunswick. That's where Chesimard was wounded, and one of two men in the car with her was killed. The other later captured. Police say that after Trooper Forrester was shot down, his own gun was ripped from his holster and 2 bullets were fired into his brain. After her capture in that deadly shootout, she was sentenced to life in prison. In 1979, with the help of 3 armed men, she broke out of the women's prison in Clinton, New Jersey.
She made her break this afternoon from the prison in Clinton, New Jersey, and lawmen once called her the soul of the Black Liberation Army.
Chesimard went underground and then surfaced in the 1980s in Cuba under Fidel Castro's protection. Now, at 50 and a grandmother, she agreed to talk with me in Havana. Chesimard, or Assata Shakur, insisted she had killed no one and was railroaded by an all-white jury and by what she called racist New Jersey state troopers.
Did you shoot Werner Foster?
No, I did not. I was shot with my arms in the air, then shot again in the back, and then left on the ground to die.
That is absolutely false. Our investigation shows that Joanne Chesimard initiated the conflict. She reached into her pocketbook, pulled out a 9mm weapon, and started firing at Trooper Harper.
Were you holding a weapon?
No, I was not. Mm.
Well, after almost 25 years, the roadway area has changed somewhat, but this is the spot where the shooting occurred. Joanne Chesimard was in the front seat on the passenger side. The driver of the car and Trooper Forrester were in the back of the car. It was after midnight, and shots rang out.
Harper, who was the other police.
Jason, dynamicist. It was after midnight, and you mean to tell me you randomly picked these people out for a tail light? It's after midnight. You knew who was in that car.
You knew all that shit. Just like Bud Crawford, who just beat Canelo, had got a parade in Oklahoma. The mayor is involved. All the everybody in the city. They pulled his ass over, guns drawn, and had him out and were threatening to shoot.
And who was it?
Bud Crawford. This just happened. He just won a major boxing match. Oklahoma's pride and joy.
Uh-huh.
Got the keys to the city. Got a streets named after him. Did all this shit. The mayor, everybody was there, right? Mm-hmm. Did all this decoration the same night, leaving the fucking parade that he had in the city, that the city threw for him. They pulled his ass over. Guns drawn.
Guns drawn.
Guns drawn.
Now you knew who he was. You cut that out.
Who he was. Just like they knew who was driving that car.
Right.
9 chances out of 10, they were following that car.
Right. Exactly.
And decided to put them on the side of the road on the highway where it wasn't that many lights. And it wasn't that many people, that many eyes to see.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. You can't tell me.
All right.
You tell me no shit like that.
Shit. Yep.
And then hold on. Then in the story, you heard the nigga say multiple cops and then goes down to one.
Oh, that she killed multiple. Yeah, I heard that. I didn't know if they were talking about this same story because 2 were shot and 1 was killed. Yeah, I was like, was she accused of killing another one?
No. But again, that's how the narratives work, right? They just paint the narratives, have you to believe whatever, not knowing that these people had absolutely nothing to do with what you're talking about. As a matter of fact, to this date, between them and the Black Panther Party, that was also on the FBI's most wanted list. No deaths attributed to those people. Yet they are on the FBI's most wanted list. Yet still, we also know that Edgar J. Hoover had them high up on their CIA investigation type shit, right? Where they were doing COINTEL and sowing seeds of dissension when they were talking about how the Black Panther Party broke up and the Liberation Army broke up. What I heard was certain words, and those words to me rang true with what we know now, that Roosevelt Edgar J. Hoover, these other presidents, what they were actually saying about these groups, right? They're a threat to this. How are they a threat when they were just trying to liberate people, to stand up, to be, to have your own, right? To develop your own, so on and so forth. And every single time we have this, every single time in this country, that it's always the same narrative. They come right behind and try to either sow seeds that cause people to go different, to break up. There's a passage in scripture that says, "You strike the shepherd, you scatter the sheep."
Mm.
So it's the same concepts, and we keep seeing this stuff play itself out over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Correct.
That was at the
The other
scene
trooper
started to shoot. And after that, everything is like foggy. It was horrible. It was like a prolonged version of hell. I felt like, everything was moving around. My chest started to explode. My head started to explode. And the next thing I knew, they were coming by me and saying, "Is she dead yet? Is she dead yet?" And I was later taken to a hospital. And I was beaten. I was tortured.
I think that as so happens so often with the criminal element, they have a tendency to turn things around, and they become the victim. We got to remember that, number one, there's a trooper who is dead.
And why did Assata Shakur escape from prison using hostages as a shield instead of appealing her case to higher courts?
I never received justice, and I escaped, A, because I was afraid for my life, and B, because I knew that I would never receive justice.
As to Chesimard's claim that she was left on the ground to die, Colonel Williams told me she and her Confederate actually sped away in their car 5 miles down the turnpike before she was finally captured, and that it was Trooper Forrester who was left on the ground to die. The Clinton, New Jersey prison from which Chesimard escaped has been rebuilt with much tighter security.
NBC News fans.
Okay, I'm a quickly go to the part 2, which is just 4 minutes just to finish.
That's what you say again. You broke up.
This is the widow.
Yeah, it's not playing on our end.
Unfair trial, such by an all-white jury.
Joanne Chesimard is the number one fugitive for the New Jersey State Police.
The head of the state police intently watched a tape of my interview with the convicted cop killer as she claimed state troopers tortured her in the hospital.
They would stick their hands in the wounds. Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here?
It's been almost 25 years, and I'm sure that she's replayed this and turned it around to her benefit many, many times.
Shakur portrayed herself as a fighter for racial justice by what she called armed struggle if necessary.
People have the right to free themselves from oppression by whatever means they deem possible.
She is not a heroine. She's a murderer.
Colonel Williams called Shakur's fears of police assassination ludicrous, but then he gave me this startling comment.
We would do everything we could to get her off the island of Cuba, and if that includes kidnapping, we would do it.
Really? Really?
Are you kidding me?
After
When I
all
heard
of that
part, I was like, this dude fucked up. And in that moment,
No, but this is what they do. Like, we've seen this.
Right.
We've seen this over and over and over again, and it's the same exact story. It doesn't matter what's right. It doesn't matter what is factual. What matters is whatever the agenda is. And that always is what stands out for people that fall within this same sect or same type of mentality. Um, we're coming up close to the hour, but I do want to say this though, is
Okay.
that I think that um, I think we're going to need not only God's strength, but we're going to need the strength of those who came before us to make it through this and to really navigate these waters that we're being thrust in. Um, when you consider um, the poisoning of our food, poisoning of our air, there are countless stories where things that have been done specifically to communities of color. There are uh, countless stories of injustices and things of that nature, and the narratives. And you see now the hijacking of our kids' education system, right? And removing certain people. And even when you consider that, like you were saying earlier, you didn't even know who she was.
Right.
Why would they tell you who she is? Why would they when they consider her to be an enemy of the state, whether it was right or wrong? And the issue I see is, even historically, when it comes to um, people that were significant in history, is that we're accepting the story of our liberation from our captor.
Yeah.
That's not okay. And so we're going to have to get really into our own grassroots. Um, I heard, I was listening to a guy, he's in Africa, and he's a tribal leader. And one of the things he said today that really stood out to me and that's ringing true, he said, is that people have to understand how to truly take care of themselves and not relying on the state. He said, because when you rely on the state, he said, not only do you become docile, not only do you become slow, or he said stupid, but you've now given the power of your livelihood to someone else, because if they don't feed you, you don't eat.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to kind of return back to these ways. And I say this to say, with Assata, she now has become one of our ancestors. I do believe in ancestors. I believe that we are standing. I think Maya Angelou said this, and I'm not. I could be mistaken, but
I think it was mine. Yeah.
who said I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, we do. And maybe one of these weeks we can talk a little bit more about it and understand kind of what it is, or demystify what that means. But we've got to get back in touch with our soil. I truly believe that a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, the answers have already really been given. A lot of them, they've been given.
Yeah.
When you consider that of all the combinations of people, one of the things I've told people this is that when you consider that you
She said I
currently,
stand on the shoulders of giants.
yeah, it was giants, ancestors, it was something like that. But I heard this quote one time, and it just stood out to me. But it says, I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors, right?
Yeah.
Because I am directly connected to the creation, to the beginning of time. Because in order for me to be here, countless combinations of people had to get together to create me. Countless. Like all the way back, as far back as you can go. The fact that I am present, which also says that the fact that you're present should truly give you the greatest sense of joy, because these people not only had to come, but they had to get to an age to procreate and had to get you to this position, get themselves to a position to where their line could continue. And you, no matter who you are directly connected to that. So that tells me that not only do you have purpose, but there is plan and design for your experience and for your life. I believe that what we're missing is not another prayer. What we're missing is the links that connect us back to that beginning of time. Because that message, the messages that are coming, the messages that can come, the strength that you need for your journey, this is not against God or outside of who he is, because again, you got to remember, he created all of that. I truly believe that that's one of the missing links. And with her passing, I believe that the spirit of her not only will continue on, but is rising in the people. It is completely rising in the people. So I love it, man. I'm really proud to be in this time period, and I'm looking forward to what we're about to do, where we're about to go with this, the collaborations, the connections that are happening, the revealings that's taking place, and people are really starting to wake up to, wait a minute, there's far more to me than what meets the eye, and I'm okay with
Yeah.
that.
And I'll say this in closing. One of the things that Assata said in her documentary was that um it's really about just being aware. I mean, because I think about, for me, you guys, it's like, okay, where do I start? Okay, I don't vote. I don't do a lot of things, right? So where do I start? For me personally, it's going to be just awareness
Mm,
and digging a little deeper. So don't take everything you hear in media about your people at face value. You have to dig, you have to put in some effort. They've been trying to, but are still in the process of trying to erase us, right? Our history, the things about us that build us up. Okay. So and one thing that Asada said was that when she got in school and college, and she only knew about just Rosa Parks, all the people, Frederick Douglass, the stuff that they push. She didn't know nothing else, right? Until she dug a little bit and she started doing some research and finding out about communism and stuff like that. So she, exactly, awareness, and exactly. So it's just kind of like, for me, okay, so what does that look like for me? For me personally, it's just that. And it's sending my son the links. Whether he reads them or not, I'll be like, okay, here, I found this, or I might highlight something, because you got to think too, the newer generations, they're not sitting down and reading and all of that. They have AI and all this stuff. They didn't have that back then. There was, we had to either talk to somebody, been there, done that, or something. So like this documentary of her, I was surprised to find out it was so jumbled up and old, but it's still out there, right? So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just, if I've like, I didn't know who Asada was. Okay, Dynamics just sent me the link when she passed, and I was like, I don't know. I still didn't look right away, but then eventually I did, and then I did some digging, and I'm like, okay, we should talk about. Okay, now let me send my son the link. Hey, just throw the shit out there, and it might stick. But the whole point in doing that is the rich history that we possess,
mhm,
not allowing it to die, because they can rip the shit from the internet or rip it out of books and all that, but they can't take away our story times and our, the stories we tell each other and pass down. You know what I'm saying? So it's got to be effort, right? So anyway, this is our little contribution, to our 6 people. But you got to start somewhere, right? So
mhm.
anyway, Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah, man, definitely. It's always appreciated. Um, yeah, there's a rich history when it comes to her, and her name really does not get talked about enough. Um, and it's terrible that we wait until people pass to do it. Better late than never, though. So
She was a
definitely make sure to look.
badass too.
Oh
We
man,
didn't get to that part. We didn't get to that part because for her to go to Cuba by herself and live, and she said, "I missed black people. I missed my culture. I missed." She started all over by herself in fear of these motherfuckers coming after her, and she just passed at 79 or 78. So she's been living like that, and her family will come and visit her from time to time, but I mean, she literally started over. It's like, damn, you's a motherfucker, boy. You's a bad motherfucker, boy. You gave it up. And for that, we got to give homage. So anyway, homage. Homage.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
All right, y'all. We love y'all. I don't know. Dynamics is gonna be out of town next week, right, for the wedding. So are we doing next week, or
My
will
daughter's, yeah, we'll let you guys know. My daughter's getting married next week, so I will be out of town for that. And then there's always preparations that lead up to that time, so it's quite a few moving parts
Yeah, it's
here.
a lot. It's a lot going on. I think we should just skip next week, honestly, and not even play with it. And but we love you guys, and yeah, rest in peace to Assata Shakur, who was Tupac Shakur's godmother. Okay, bring it back home and make bring it back around. Okay, that's how I knew. I was like Shakira. That Shakira sounds like is that she related to Tupac? Okay, bye. We gotta go. I'll go on and on. We love you.
Yeah, love you guys,
Bye,
man.
y'all.
Thank you again.
See ya. Have a good rest of the week. Love you.